Everyone, thanks for joining me today as we take these moments today to talk about creating margin in our lives. And if you remember, as we've been going through this series so far, margin is space for God to show up and work in incredible ways. And one of the things I know is that I need margin in my life. You need margin in our life because we live lives that are so busy and they are so consuming that oftentimes we are so burdened or full that there is no room for anything else. And yet God doesn't want that to be the thing that defines us. And so if we want God to show up in our lives as devoted disciples, we need space for him to show up. And today I want us to turn to the book of Luke. We're going to go to chapter 22. And what we're going to see today is Jesus through a passage that I think a lot of us might not associate with margin. We're going to see that God brought great encouragement to Jesus as he was about to embark on the most difficult, yet the most, according to the book of Hebrews chapter 12, the most joyous part of his earthly ministry. And we're going to look at Jesus' prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane. And so Luke chapter 22, starting in verse 39, I'm just going to read for you as we start to unpack this a little bit. And it says this, and he came out and went, as was his custom, to the Mount of Olives, as the disciples followed him. And so I want to stop there. And so what we're finding here is that the gospel writer Luke is continuously telling us that Jesus would take these times periodically, often, to go and to be alone with his Father, where he and his Father could just simply commune together, that Jesus would spend time praying and listening and being nourished through his relationship with the Father. And this was no different the night before he was going to go to the cross. And verse 40 continues with this. And when he came to the place, he said to them, the other 11 disciples that were there, remember Judas had already left to betray him, "Pray that you may not enter into temptation." And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw and knelt down and prayed. And now this is what Jesus uttered, saying, "Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done." And so Jesus here was praying that God would give him the strength and the ability to complete the mission of going to the cross, dying in my place and in yours, so that salvation could be there. I find it so just fascinating for us to look at that Jesus, the God of the universe, actually spent time praying and communing before he went to do the work that God had called him to do. But he didn't just leave it there. Because what we're going to see now is in the midst of the margin that Jesus created for the Father to enter, we're going to see an encouragement that comes in a powerful way. Verse 43. And there appeared to him an angel from heaven, strengthening him. And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling to the ground. And when he rose from prayer, he came to the disciples and found them sleeping for sorrow. And he said to them, "Why are you sleeping? Rise and pray, that you may not enter into temptation." And then it goes in saying why he was speaking is when Judas showed up. But friends, what I look through in this passage is that Jesus was embarking on the most difficult aspect of calling. And he needed the encouragement of his Father. The angel showed up to take care of him. You see something very similar in Elijah's story that we looked at last week, where the angel came and brought food and comforted Elijah. We need encouragement sometimes to do the things that God is calling us to do. But the only way that we can experience that encouragement is by having margin in our lives. And so, friends, I wanted you to think about that today. And I want you to think of two things. What is it that God is calling you to? And do you have margin in your life to support God showing up to bring encouragement? Maybe it's encouragement in a time of prayer. Maybe it's in having the time to get into the scriptures and God encourages you through his word. But by creating that margin, you had the time to do it. Maybe it's through a friend that God brings encouraging words. Maybe it's through a provision, whatever it might be. Do we have the room in our lives to experience the encouragement of God. And so I want to bring that to you, especially as we've been going through I think I've heard it from so many people, such a busy summer. Where is the margin in your life to hear from God as he longs to encourage you in your walk with him? Identify those things, rest in them, and I can guarantee God will show up like none other. Have a great day as you seek after God.